Very good morning, students. Today we will going to discuss our first chapter, flow of fluid. Before going to start directly the chapter, we will going to overlook the pharmaceutical engineering syllabus which has been framed by Pharmaceutical Council, Pharmacy Council of India, and which is well executed by our Savitribai Phule Pune University. So the scope of the subject is this course is designed to impart a fundamental knowledge on the art and science of various unit operations used in pharmaceutical industry. This is the objective. Upon completion of this course, student shall able to know various unit operations used in pharmaceutical industries. Second objective is to understand the material handling techniques. Third objective is to perform the various processes involved in pharmaceutical manufacturing process. Fourth objective is to carry out various tests to prevent environmental pollution. Fifth objective is to appreciate and comprehend significance of plant layout design for optimum use of resources. And sixth objective is to appreciate the various preventive methods used for the corrosion control in pharmaceutical industry. This is the subject code of our pharmaceutical engineering is BP304T. Okay, so 45 hours which has been a lot for this subject by the SPPU is 45 hours. Yesterday we have discussed the in detail depth of our syllabus of pharmaceutical engineering. So I will not going to brush up this topic or you can say the syllabus in depth, but I will going to just highlight the only the chapter name. Unit 1, the 10 hours has been assigned to this chapter to complete. So flow of fluids, size reduction, size separation. So these three topics will have to covered in unit 1. Out of these, size reduction and size separation we have done with at our first year B pharmacy in pharmaceutics 1 subject. So this subject quite be beneficial to you, or you can say this is the bonus point you can learn and earn your credit points as well as your marks. Unit 2nd, which is having 10 hours weightage given by the SPPU. In the unit 2nd, will have to complete heat transfer, evaporation and distillation part or chapter you can say. Then unit 3, which having the 8 hours weightage, in that we'll have to complete the 2 chapter, that is drying and mixing. Out of these 2 chapter, we have done with the mixing in the first year pharmaceutics, so we don't have to take much more extra efforts to know much more about this topic because your fundamentals or the basics has already been clear. Unit 4, wherein we'll have to look forward for the filtration and centrifugation, and the 8 hours it's the weightage for this unit 4 for the completion. So out of these filtrations we have done in the first year, and last it will be your unit 5, which having the 7 hours weightage. In that the material of pharmaceutical plant construction and corrosion and its prevention and different types of the factors will have to roll down. So this is all about the flashback of your pharmaceutical engineering syllabus, which we have discussed in depth yesterday. So this is my disclaimer. These presentation slides are only provided for the students' request. So the purpose of this quick reference only, and hence it cannot be replaced with the standard study material or books that are mentioned in syllabus of respective subjects. So students are expected to refer the standard books for the study for the examination. This is actually the content of the very first chapter of mine, that is flow of fluid, wherein I will going to focus on the fluid properties, Reynolds experiments, then manometer, orifice meter, Venturi meter, pitot tube, rotameter, and current flow meter. So we'll going to discuss it one by one. Fluid flow or flow of fluid, you can say. So fluids are the material which deform continuously or flow as long as shear stress is applied, but are unable to achieve an equilibrium under the applied shear stress. So this is the normal thing actually. When we talk on the properties of a flow of fluid, so basically the three properties are contributing its own importance to know much more about the flow of fluid. First one is your viscosity, compressibility, surface tension of fluid. So we'll going to discuss it one by one in next slide. After that, the study of the fluid is basically divided into the two parts. First is your fluid statics and second is your fluid dynamics. So what actually this fluid static is? Fluid static is nothing but the study of fluids at rest, wherein in case of fluid dynamics, this dynamic study is related with the study of fluids in the motion. So this is the very basic difference between the fluid static and fluid dynamic. So the dynamic is the word, it's only because of it will not going to retain its originality. That is nothing but it is always going to be keep on changing. It is totally depend upon what type of liquids you are using for. So to know much more about these fluid dynamics, we have to learn Bernoulli's theorem, flow of fluids in the pipes, laminars, and the turbulent flow. Not to forget the definition of these flow of fluid. It is the flow of substances that do not permanently resist the distortion. So this definition covers the flow of liquid and gases at a given temperature and pressure. So a fluid possesses a defined density. In case of liquids, the density is not appreciably affected by moderate changes in the pressure. In case of gases, density is affected appreciably by both temperature and pressure. So a fluid is said to be incompressible if a fluid is inappreciably affected by changes in the pressure, but gases can be compressed. Most of the liquids are incompressible. So on the basis of these kind of words, the properties I have told you in last slide, there are the three properties which are mainly responsible for the flow of fluid. One is your viscosity, surface tension, and compressibility. So in the next diagram, viscosity, we could able to see the diagram wherein the different types of test tubes you are able to see. So the test tube which contain the liquid which having the watery flow, second test tube which shows a bit of viscous as compared to the first one, like your glycerine. Third one is it is quite viscous, more one as compared to the second one, as like your honey. And fourth test tube, it is about to flow, but the resistance is there as far as the flow is concerned. So that's why you can easily compare that fourth test tube towards your first one, that it could not going to be flow very easily. When in case of last test tube, the flow of fluid has got resisted, wherein the viscosity is zero, you can say in a conceptual manner. So This is all about your viscosity. Viscosity is a measure of fluid's resistance to flow. It describes the internal friction of a moving fluid. To know much more about the viscosity, one should know what actually the effect of viscosity, if the viscosity, if it is more or less. If your viscosity, if it is more one, then automatically the resist, it will going to resist the motion, because its molecular makeup gives it a lot of internal friction. Where in case of, if your flow of viscosity is less, then that time it will going to flow very easily, because its molecular makeup results in very little friction when it is in motion. So here in these two sentence, you could able to make the differentiation between the large viscosity and the low viscosity. In case of large viscosity, the lot of internal friction is there, and it's only because of the more internal friction that viscosity of the fluid could not going to show its fluidity in a more manner, that is nothing but watery flow. Where in case of low viscosity, the internal friction of your molecular makeup is very less. So that's why it's only because of these little or more internal friction you could able to distinguish what actually the large viscosity as well as the low viscosity impact. Next is your surface tension. Surface tension is a contractive tendency of the surface of fluid that allows it to resist an external force. So fluid tends to attain the minimum surface area as possible. So why it is so? The reason behind this is that while a molecule inside the fluid bulk is pulled in each and every direction by the adjacent molecule, but at the surface of the fluid the case is different. The adhesive forces causes the downward pull on the molecular due to the cohesion, so the molecule on the surface tends to move down, and it's only because of the cohesive property and the directions there in the adjacent molecule, the fluid bulk is gonna pull to each other, and obviously due to the adhesive force it will going to cause the downward pull. So the formula used to calculate the surface tension is rho g h is equal to 2 gamma cos theta upon r. So when this rho g will going to multiply with the denominator, then the equations would be changed as like h is equal to 2 gamma cos theta upon rho g into r. So if you could able to see there in the diagram, the ft summation f is equal to 0 summation f. As I have already told you that surface which having the the fluid which having the tendency, basically the flow of fluid is depend upon your viscosity, surface tension and the compressibility obviously. So when if your fluid containing the molecule, if it doesn't have any density, so obviously it will going to float over the surface. So the surface of any liquid which behaves as though it is covered by a stretched membrane, so it is denoted by your summation f is equal to 0, where you could able to see it's only because of this adhesive force that molecules get attracted downwards, or you can say pulled down. In another case, when the net force on the molecule at surface is into bulk of the liquid, then due to the less density it will going to remain float over the surface. So that time the adhesive force, it is really less one, so that's why you can't predict where the summation f is what actually. But yes, you can predict when the adhesive force, it is inherent property of your molecule that will going to pull your particle downward, so that then that time it is very easy to give our statement related with the flow fluid. So this is your simple equation, that is sigma is equal to F divided by L. So yeah, obviously we have turned over the flow fluid basically. So you could able to see there in the diagram. So there are the four figures are given, and you could able to see even the ability of the fluid to flow. Okay, so that is also related with your viscosity, surface tension, and your compressibility. So basically a fluid is a substance that continuously deforms, that is flows under an applied shear stress. So the fluids are a subset of the phases of matter and include the liquid and gases. Fluid flow may be defined as the flow of substances that do not permanently resist the distortion. The subject of fluid flow can be divided into the fluid statics and the fluid dynamics, so that part we have already been covered and discussed too. So this is your fluid static. Basically this fluid static, to understand much more about the fluid static, one should know what actually the importance of pressure here, and how that pressure measurement is really beneficial, and to determine this pressure measurement, so what kind of instrument or device we can use. Okay, so manometer and Bourdon gauge is a important tool wherein we are able to measure the pressure. Okay, so we will going to discuss it one by one. So the fluid statics deals with the fluid at rest in the equilibrium, we know. Next point is your behavior of the liquid at rest. Okay, so we should learn that behavior. Nature of the pressure it exerts, and the variation of the pressure at different layers. Basically, the study of fluid at rest is based on two principles. So the pressure at the point is the same in all direction. First is, second is pressure is the same at all points in a given horizontal line in a continuous fluid. So to know much more about this pressure difference between the layers and the liquid, we should know that the pressure definition. So, or you can say the intensity of the pressure. So intensity of the pressure is defined as the force exerted on a unit area. It is called as your intensity of pressure. What I said, it is the force exerted on a unit area. So the pressure may be expressed as absolute pressure. So what do you mean by absolute pressure here? So absolute pressure is with reference to the vacuum or absolute zero pressure, wherein we consider here the absolute pressure condition. That is what? A reference to the vacuum or absolute zero pressure. It may be expressed with the reference to the atmospheric pressure at a sea level 760 mm Hg or 1.013 into 105 Pascal, I think so. So using manometer it can be done. So consider a column liquid as shown in this figure. The two openings are provided to the wall of the vessel at heights. So the rate of the flow from these openings are different in exactly right hand side of the diagram. So this behavior can be quantitatively expressed. So consider a stationary column of fluid as shown in the figure 2. The pressure PS, which is exerted or which have denoted with the help of arrow, that is PS, that is Pascal, is acting on the surface of the fluid. The stationary column is mentioned at constant pressure by applying pressure P Pascal at point A. So it is exactly the point 1 and point 2 which is denoted. So let the cross section of the column be s meter square and is uniform from top to bottom. So the force here that is for the pressure acting on the liquid at different level of the liquid column can be determined. So the force when we uh, measured by means of Newton, then the forces acting on each side, that is horizontal compounds of the point 1, are mutually multiplied. So the force in Newtons acting below and above the point 1 are evaluated. So we'll have to consider this parameter first of all, that is where in case of your stationary column the pressure P is acting on the surface of the fluid, column is maintained at constant pressure by applying the pressure, and the force acting below and above the point 1 which we have evaluated already. So next part is your force acting on the liquid at point 1, which is exactly equal to the force on the surface plus the force exerted by the liquid above the point 1. So we'll have to substitute this force with pressure multiplied by area of cross section S in the equation 1, which gives you the pressure at point 2 multiplied by area. So it is exactly equal to the pressure on the surface area multiplied by surface area, where in case of pressure at point 1, which is denoted in the figure, which is multiplied by the area, is equal to the pressure on the surface area multiplied by the surface area plus mass into gram. So wherein the new equations will be generated as P1S is equal to P2S plus, inside the bracket we'll able to see here the height multiplied by volume multiplied by density multiplied by gram. So you can say in short that volume into density into acceleration due to gravity. Acceleration due to gravity. So this is all about exactly. Then these equations will be confined itself as P1S is equal to P2S plus volume into density into gram. When we will going to convert into the appropriate manner, wherein we could able to see that instead of volume, when if you could able to convert into the height and area, then the equations would be different one, that is P1S is equal to P2S plus H1S into rho into G. Since surface area is same, so therefore P1 is equal to PS plus H1 rho G. So pressure acting on the point 2 may be written as P2 is equal to PS plus H2 into rho into G. So the difference in the pressure is P2 minus P1 is equal to, common is a G, so that's why we have taken it apart. G inside the bracket PS plus H2 into rho bracket complete minus inside the bracket PS plus H1 into rho bracket complete G. So when delta P, the next assumption is the delta P is equal to PS plus H2 rho minus PS minus H1 rho bracket complete G. So final equations would be delta P is equal to delta H into rho into G. So wherein F is equal to your volume into rho into G. So therefore the here one thing will come to know that pressure difference, that is delta P, that is Pascal, between any 2 points can be measured by the distance between those points in a fluid if the density of the fluid, that is rho kilogram per meter cube. It varies with the variation of pressure, and average density could be used. So the variation in densities is quite negligible for the liquids and gases, since the difference in the heights, that is delta H, it is in the meter, is necessary for the measurement. So height can be measured from the bottom of the stationary column. So that's why pressure difference is directly proportional to the height difference. So that's why it's having the direct relationship. So when the pressure difference increases, height difference is also increases. Wherein pressure difference is decreases, then height difference is also decreases. So that's why, or therefore the pressure is expressed in terms of height, that is in unit, and often referred as we have told earlier. Basically the different types of applications are there related with the fluid static. What you can say, the very first application related with this fluid static is the pressure difference, that is delta P, is measured in terms of difference in the heights of the liquid column. It is also applied for the quantification of fluid flow as in Bernoulli's theorem. So Bernoulli's theorem will going to roll down in upcoming slides. Next is your fluid dynamic. So we know that fluid dynamics is what? Fluid dynamics, which deals with the study of fluids in motion. So the study of flow properties of liquid is important for the pharmacist working in the manufacturing the dosage form, such as different liquids, gels, ointments, creams, and the paste. So this system which change their flow behavior when exposed to the different stress condition in the different types of situation. So those situations is, your first situations will be your manufacture of your dosage form. So materials undergo processes such as mixing, flowing through pipes, getting filled in the containers. Flow related changes influence the selection of mixing equipment. So this is your first condition. Second conditions would be your handling of drug for the administration. So the syringeability of the medicines, pouring of the liquids, extrusion of the ointment from the tubes, etc., which is depend on the changes in the flow behavior of the dosage form. What I said, handling, the second situation is handling of the drugs for the administration. So the syringeability of the medicines, pouring of the liquid, you can say, then extrusion of ointment from the tubes, etc., which is depend upon the different changes in the flow behavior of the dosage form. So thus this flow behavior of the liquids is of relevance in the pharmacy. So that's why we are taking this the great chapter here at our first half. So the performance of a product, which ultimately depends on the net effect of all the mentioned processed, okay, so whatever I have discussed. So therefore the flow properties are used as important quality control tools to maintain the superiority of the product and to reduce the batch to batch variations. So the importance of this I have already discussed with these two aspects, that is manufacture of dosage form and handling. So the flow of fluid through a pipe can be viscous or maybe turbulent, and it can be determined by Reynolds number. So we're going to discuss the Reynolds number in detail. So Reynolds number have basically the no unit. So we'll discuss. So next is your Reynolds experiment. Before going to directly come to the construction and working, we should know what actually the Reynolds experiment is. This point is very important actually, as far as your exam point of view. So basically we should know what actually the mechanism of fluid flow. So the flow of fluid through a closed channel like a pipeline, which can be shown to either viscous or turbulent. So in Reynolds number, when we talk regarding the velocity of water, if it is low, the thread of colored water maintain its identity throughout the tube. So we're going to see the diagram in next slide, where you could able to see the flow of fluid through a closed channel can be either viscous or turbulent. Okay, so this is your exact diagram. So it may be different in your textbook. So basically, to know much more about this Reynolds experiment, you will have to referred some reference material for the better diagrammatic representation. So where we could able to see there in the diagram, so the basic component for the laminar or the viscous flow, which is depicted in the figure, is your color water, which is denoted by your left hand side by pink color box. Okay, which is your tank of full of pink color water. Above than that there is a water, and below that there is a, what you can say, the glass tube. Okay, mm, which is cylindrical. So this water tank, which has fit into this glass tube by means of valve. So stopcock to vary the flow rate of the water. So with the help of this valve, we can stop the cock to maintain the flow rate of your water. Below than that there is a horizontal line which is of colored liquid. Okay, you can say. So with this fine orifice, fine glass nozzle, this color water may flow. Okay, so that is exactly the stream of your colored water, you can say. So this is all about your Reynolds experiment. So what does it mean? Where in case of turbulent flow, that is your second diagram, you will able to differentiate the flow of colored liquid there in the first tube, that is which is very horizontal and parallel to the ground of to your glass tube. Where in case of turbulent flow, in the glass tube itself, you could able to see that the flow of that colored liquid, it is laminar one at initial level, but afterwards it will going to be very turbulent, or you can say the zigzag in motion. So that zigzag wala pattern, it is nothing but your turbulent flow. So wherein you could not going to able to judge the what kind of force it does have. Okay, so with the help of different instruments we can judge even these kind of things. Okay, so with the help of Reynolds experiments you could able to differentiate what actually the laminar flow and what actually the turbulent flow is. So we're going to discuss it one by one, what actually the turbulent and laminar flow is. Where you could able to see in this diagram that turbulent flow and the laminar flow. So we'll first of all see the turbulent flow. So the turbulent flow, when the velocity of water is increased, that means what? By increasing the pressure difference. Pressure difference, if it is more, then the velocity of water is maybe more. Okay, so you could able to understand, or you if you can able to recall your memories, when if you are supposed to flowing of some, what you can say, or instead of, you can take the example of your garden. Even if you are gardening, and then if you are pouring the water through your pipe to the different what you can say, the plants or the ornamental plants, you can say. So when you are, if you are pouring the water, if the water flow, if it is very less, then you will going to press the entry point, sorry, the out point of your pipe, so thereby the water flow it may be exerted on the tip of that pipe, it would be more. So that's why the force of that water it could be large, so that time you can define that is nothing but your turbulent flow. And if the force is less, so that's why initially at time you could able to see the behavior of your water, so it is really laminar one. So that is nothing but the velocity of water, it may be increased due to the pressure difference. So the threads of color water disappears and the entire mass of water gets uniformly colored, and it indicates the complete mixing of the solution. Then the flow of water is considered to be the turbulent one. Where in case of laminar flow, so laminar flow, when the velocity water is less, the thread of color water maintain its identity throughout the tube by introducing the similar jets of the colored water at different points in the cross section of the glass tube. So it can be noted that no part of tube exhibits the sign of the mixing. In another word, you can say that the color streams are seen as parallel lines. In case of laminar, the flow of water is considered to be viscous or streamline, or you can say the laminar flow. So laminar flow is also called as viscous flow, is also called as streamline flow. Basically, this laminar flow is one in which the fluid particles move in layers, or the laminar with one layer sliding over the other. Therefore, there is a no exchange of the fluid particles from one layer to the another. Hence, the transfer of lateral momentum to the adjacent layer is not observed. Okay, so in next diagram, we'll going to discuss about the difference basically between these two. So the type of flow, okay, I have already discussed in detail, that is what actually the laminar and your turbulent. So the very first point in the differentiation, that is laminar flow, is one in which the fluid particles move in layers, or laminar with one layer sliding with other. Where in case of turbulent flow, the velocity of the water is increased, that means your pressure difference is increased, the thread of the colored water disappears and the mass of the water gets uniformly colored. Second point, there is a no exchange of the fluid particles from one layer to other in case of laminar. In case of turbulent, there is a complete mixing of the solution and the flow of the fluid is called as turbulent flow. So average velocity is equal to 0.5 max, where in case of your turbulent flow the average velocity would be 0.8 V max. Okay, so that is nothing but maximum velocity. Where in case of Reynolds, which doesn't have any unit, we know that. So Reynolds, where in case of laminar it would be less than 2000, but where in case of turbulent flow it may be more than 4000. So the velocity at which the fluid change from laminar flow to turbulent flow, that velocity is called as critical velocity. Okay, so I will going to repeat this sentence. The velocity at which the fluid changes from laminar flow to the turbulent flow, that velocity is called as critical velocity. So basically what actually the Reynolds numbers needed, the flow conditions are affected by the different parts. The first is your diameter of pipe, then second is average velocity, third is density of liquid, fourth is viscosity of the fluid. So these four factors are combined in one way as Reynolds numbers. So Re is equal to d into u into rho upon neta, which is exactly equal to the inertial forces upon the viscous forces in short. So what actually this d, u, rho and neta? D is nothing but your diameter of your pipe, u is nothing but your average velocity, which is measured in terms of meter per second. Then density of liquid, that is kilogram per meter cube, or you can say gram per ml. Or viscosity of the liquid, we know that it is measured in the Pascal. So what actually the inertial forces is? Inertial forces are due to the mass and the velocity of the fluid particles trying to diffuse the fluid particles. Viscous force is the frictional force due to the viscosity of the fluid which make the motion of the fluid in parallel. At the low velocity of the inertial forces are less when they compared to the frictional forces, resulting flow will be viscous in nature. In another hand, when the inertial forces are predominant, the fluid layers break up due to the increase in velocity, hence turbulent flow takes place. If Reynolds number, if it would be less than 2000, the flow is said to be laminar. If the Reynolds number, if it would be more than the 4000, then the flow is said to be a turbulent. If the Reynolds number lies between the 2000 to 4000, the flow changes between the laminar to turbulent. Okay, so this is all about the you can say the Reynolds number. When we talk regarding the different types of applications, okay, so before going to go for the applications, we'll going to conclude this Reynolds number in great manner. So higher the Reynolds number, greater is the relative contribution of the inertial effect. At very low Reynolds number, viscous effect predominant and the contribution of the inertial forces can be ignored. Inertial forces are due to the mass and the velocity of the fluid particles trying to diffuse the fluid particles. So the viscous force is the frictional force due to the viscosity of the fluid, which makes the motion of the fluid in parallel layer. So therefore, at low velocity, the inertial forces caused by the viscosity, the resulting flow will be viscous in nature, that is particles move in the parallel layers. For this reason, the laminar flow is sometimes known as viscous. On the other hand, when the inertial forces, okay, are predominant, I told you, which is depicted by the green color, that inertial forces are predominant, the fluid layers break up due to the increase in the velocity, hence turbulent flow takes place. So this is all about your Reynolds number. We'll see in short the applications of this Reynolds number. Reynolds number is used to predict the nature of flow, obviously viscous or the turbulent, in a particular set of experimental condition. Next one is the physical stability of the suspension or the emulsion depends on the rate of settling of the particles or the globules. For the study of sedimentation of the particle, Stokes law is used. Okay, so we know that we have already discussed in the chapter of suspension. So in this study, the rate of sedimentation of the particles must not be too rapid to create the turbulence. So therefore, the type of flow, whether laminar or turbulent, is important. So accordingly, when we talk regarding the Stokes equation, is modified to include the Reynolds number. So the rate of heat transferred in the liquid also depend on the flow, whether viscous or turbulent. Okay, so this is all about the some application part. Yes, this is next diagram which shows you the variation in the velocity of flow across the cross section. So when the local velocity of the fluid is plotted against the distance from the wall, the different types of conclusion can be drawn from these diagram. So first of all, we should know what actually these components of these diagrams are. On a y-axis, you could able to see the relative distance from the center of the pipe. Exactly on the x-axis, you could able to see the u by u max, then upper by x-axis, that is your pipe wall, and in between you could able to see the turbulent flow and the viscous flow. Okay, so here the flow of fluid in the middle of the pipe is faster than the fluid nearer to the wall. So the velocity of the fluid approaches zero as the pipe wall is what you can say, it is approached. At the actual surface of the pipe wall, the velocity of the fluid is zero. Okay, so concentrate on my words, what I am talking about. So my first point related with this diagram is the flow of fluid in the middle of the pipe is faster than the fluid nearer to the wall. The velocity of the fluid approaches zero as the pipe wall is approached. At the actual surface of the pipe wall, the velocity of the fluid is zero. Since the variations are observed in the velocity of flow across the cross sectional, there should be some means of estimating a average velocity. Okay, so there are few points which I am going to discuss with you people, so concentrate on my words. First situation, in viscous condition, the average velocity over the whole cross section is 0.5 times the maximum. What I said, the maximum condition, the average velocity over the whole cross section is 0.5 times the maximum. Second case, in the turbulent flow, the average velocity over the whole cross section is 0.8 times the maximum. Okay, I have already discussed with you people what actually it is in the difference of turbulent and laminar when we were discussed in the last slide. So since the velocity of the fluid is zero at the wall surface, there should be some layers in the viscous flow near the pipe wall which acts as a stagnant layer. Okay, and a gradual transition from one region to another, there exists a boundary layer which is shown as buffer layer. Okay, so this buffer layer oscillates between viscous flow and turbulent flow. I am going to repeat once again, gradual transition from one region to another, there exists a boundary layer which is known as buffer layer. So this buffer layer oscillates between viscous flow and turbulent flow. Even if the flow is turbulent at the center of the pipe and viscous at the surface of the wall, a buffer layer exists. Where this buffer layer exists, even if the flow is turbulent at the center of the pipe and viscous at the surface of the wall, the buffer layer exists. So it must be emphasized that boundary layer can never be eliminated. Increasing the velocity of the fluid over the surface will reduce the thickness of the layer, but it will be never eliminated entirely. Okay, so this is all about this variation, or you can say this distribution of fluid velocities across the cross section of the pipe. So what actually this application of this distribution diagram? So very first application is, though the general principle are mentioned in the different way, but considerable variation in velocity distribution may be possible with changes in the roughness, direction, or you can say temperature, or very most important is your cross section of the pipe. So due to this region, the shape of the curve may be changed. So shape of the curve may be changed means what? Variation in the velocity distribution may be possible with changes in roughness, direction, temperature, or the cross section of the pipe. And second applications would be the nature of the flow of liquid in pipe determines the rate of heat transfer. So the buffer layer in the turbulent flow and the stagnant layer in viscous flow offer the resistance to the heat transfer. So that heat transferred wala concept will going to be rolled down in our next chapter, that is your heat transfer. Okay, hope I am able to make you understand regarding the concept related with the expressions and all. Okay, next is your Bernoulli's theorem. So it is very important as like your Reynolds numbers. So this Bernoulli's theorem, what actually it is? So when the principle of the flow of energy is applied to the flow of fluids, the resulting equation is your Bernoulli's theorem. Okay, so what actually this Bernoulli's theorem is? A application of law of conservation of energy to flow of fluid is your Bernoulli's theorem. What I said, application of law of conservation of energy to flow of fluid is your Bernoulli's theorem. In another words, you can say that energy balance of flow of fluid is known as Bernoulli's equation. What I said, energy balance of flow of fluid is known as your Bernoulli's equation. So when the principle of the law of energy is applied to the flow of fluids, the resulting equation is your Bernoulli's theorem. Consider a pipe here. A pump generally supply the energy for conveying the liquids from one point to another. Consider such a pump working under the isothermal conditions between your A and point B. That is nothing but, if you could able to see the pipe, the entry point is your A and your upper part of your pipe, okay, which is what we can say joined with the help of pump. So upper part of that pump, another end is your B, exactly in the figure at right hand side. So when we talk regarding the entry, no, so that is nothing but your fluid flow, which is the A part of your entry point in the pipe. Okay, so and next part is your pump. In between that pipe there is a pump. Okay, so Bernoulli's theorem statement is, in a steady state the total energy per unit mass consists of pressure, kinetic and potential energy are constant. So kinetic energy is equal to u square divided by 2g, and pressure energy is measured in terms of PA divided by rho into A into G. So at point A, 1 kilogram, that is unit mass of liquid, is assumed to be entering. That means what? 1 kilogram of your liquid is assumed to be entered from point A. At this point the liquid experiences mechanical energy, which can be expressed as pressure energy, kinetic energy and potential energy. Okay, so pressure energy or the flow energy, you can say, is an energy form peculiar to the flow of fluids. So the work done is the product of pressure energy and the volume. So the volume of unit mass of the liquid is reciprocal of the density, that is your rho. So for an incompressible fluid, the density is not depend on the pressure. So for unit mass of fluid, the pressure energy is P upon P. So this is all about the expression of this Bernoulli's theorem, what actually it is. So this pressure energy or the flow of energy, which can be denoted by this equation, PA upon G into rho into A. PA is equal to pressure at point A, G is nothing but acceleration due to gravity, and rho A is nothing but your density of the liquid. So potential energy of the body is defined as the energy possessed by the body by the virtues of its position. So potential energy is equal to XA. So kinetic energy of the body is defined as the energy possessed by the body by virtue of its motion. So kinetic energy is equal to capital UA 2 divided by 2g. So the total energy at point A, it would be somehow PE plus KE. So PE is nothing but pressure energy plus potential energy plus KE. So what actually this pressure energy? So we will have to look forward for the pressure energy equation. So total energy at point A will have to come club together these three energy. So PAV plus XA plus UA2 divided by 2g. So this is very simple manner I have made the possible arrangement of this talk on this flow of fluid. Next is, according to the Bernoulli's theorem, the total energy at point A is constant. So total energy at point we have done with, so you can apply the constant way of thinking. So after the system reaches the steady state, whenever 1 kilogram of liquid enters at point A, another 1 kilogram of liquid leaves at point B. So whatever we are entered in the form of 1 kg, so automatically it will going to be out from the point B, from the pipe. So total energy at point B, it would be PBV. So instead of A, we are assuming here the pressure difference with respect to the B1. So PBV plus XB plus UB2 divided by 2G. So that's why PAV plus XA plus inside the bracket UA square divided by 2G bracket complete plus energy added by the pump, it would be your PBV plus XB plus UB2 by 2G. So V is the specific volume and it is reciprocal of density. So theoretically all kind of the energies involved in the flow fluid should be accounted. Pump has added certain amount of energy. So during the transport, some energy is converted to heat due to the frictional force. So energy loss due to the friction in the line is equal to F energy added by the pump, that is your yes, it is by pump. Then your W is nothing but your PA divided by rho A plus XA plus UA square by 2G minus F plus W. Yeah, it is equal to the second side of your pipe, that is PB divided by G into rho B plus XB plus U square B upon 2G. So this equation is called as Bernoulli's theorem. Okay, this is all about your Bernoulli's theorem. So hope you understood the Bernoulli's theorem and as well as the Reynolds number. As far as the application of these Bernoulli's equation is concerned, so Bernoulli's theorem is applied in the measurement of the rate of fluid flow using the orifice meter and Venturi meter. So next is your Bernoulli's theorem is applied in the working of centrifugal pumps. In these pumps, the kinetic energy is converted into the pressure head, which helps in the pumping the liquids. It is easy to measure the heights and apply them as energy terms, which is a contribution of Bernoulli's theorem. Okay, so energy loss we'll see then. So there are several energy losses experienced by the fluid while flowing through a pipe. So which include some losses, that is frictional loss, losses in the fitting, then enlargement losses, then contraction losses. Okay, so I have already told you the different applications of the Bernoulli's theorem. So we're going to revise it once again. So it is gonna used in the measurement of rate of fluid flow using the flow meters. Second application would be it applied in the working of the centrifugal pump. In this, kinetic energy is converted into the pressure. So we haven't discussed that energy losses. In short, we're going to brush up these concept what actually these frictional loss is. So friction loss, the fluid flow could be either viscous or turbulent. However, in practice, fluids are rarely handled in viscous flow. So Hagen-Poiseuille's equations could be employed for the calculating this friction drop in viscous flow. So we're going to elaborate in our next presentation actually, but due to the time constraints, we're going to wind up this part which is related to our this delivery of lecture. Okay, next is your losses in the fitting. Losses in the fitting is there is a fanning equation, FANNING, that is fanning equation, is applicable when the fluid is passing through a straight pipe. What I said, a fluid is passing through a straight pipe, that nothing but your losses in the fitting. So when there are the disturbances in the flow due to the change in the direction or due to various type of fittings, there will be additional energy loss due to the added turbulence. So due to the very widely varying types of the fitting, it is difficult to specify the loss due to each type. So instead it is customary to express this loss as the equivalent length of the straight pipe, which is given a certain number of pipe diameters. Next is your enlargement losses. In enlargement losses, if the cross section of the pipe is increased or decreased gradually, what I said, if the pipe cross section of the pipe is increased or decreased gradually, then the fluid adapts itself to the changed section without disturbances, and there will be no energy loss. So however, if the change in the cross section is sudden, then energy loss occurs due to the formation of eddies. Eddies formation, that is nothing but EDDIES. So something is related with your turbulent flow. Okay, so for sudden enlargement with the turbulent flow, the loss is given by the numerous expression or the equations. Okay, so we're going to discuss this later on. Next flow is your contraction loss. When the cross section is reduced suddenly, the loss in the energy is denoted by what you can say, the vena contracta, you can say, the sudden contraction, that is nothing but I think so there is equation delta HC is equal to K into U square 2 upon 2GC. I will going to repeat, delta HC is equal to K, capital K, into U square upon U square 2 upon 2GC. Okay, so this is all about your losses of energy losses, okay, according to the different law of conservation of energy. Okay, hope that presentation it will be quite fruitful to you. This is the request from my side to all of you, that yes, you should just go with by preparing your own notes. You can prepare your assignment as we have done in our first year B Farm. Excellent work you have done, and excellent marks you have even got. It's exclusively because of your efforts you have taken in the first year, and it's only because of that you got the very good marks in the pharmaceutics. So it is my humble request to everyone, just prepare your one notebook and go through this presentation and learn much more about this theorem. Okay, so actually it is not difficult to learn. Very simple manner I have put forth actually the different theorems in a very simple manner, and my talk is also simple. It's not very easy not to get in. Okay, so in next presentation or lecture we'll going to see the another topic. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oof.